This is the best 100-day start of any president in history. That's how Donald Trump kicked off his recent speech, bragging about all of the mess that he's created so far. And by the way, there's already a full video on this channel breaking down his first 100 days in detail, so if you missed that, be sure to go and check it out later. Today though, I thought it would be fun to ask a different question. Will the next 100 days be just as great as the ones we've already survived? But to keep it fair and objective with no bias or emotion, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to fact-check Trump's 100-day speech, and in the second part of the video, I'll have it predict what the next 100 days might actually look like. And trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end, because if you've been watching this channel for a while, you already know that ChatGPT's predictions often turn out to be surprisingly accurate. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so that you don't miss out on any of the new videos that I post each and every week. Thanks a lot, and now let's get into the chat. Alright, so here we are. First up, ChatGPT needs to gather up all the latest news about Donald Trump and his first 100 days, and once that's done, we'll move on. Now I'm going to feed the full transcript of his 100-day speech into ChatGPT, and I'll have it fact-check everything he said. But don't worry, you didn't have to actually watch it. Let's just say it was exactly what you would expect. Yes, ChatGPT will need to be clear, straightforward, unbiased, no sugarcoating, no fluff, none of that. Alright, let's find out what in that speech was true and what wasn't, and here we go. Trump's 100-day rally speech was a 2-hour flood of bragging, chaos, exaggerations, and flat-out lies. Some parts were typical Trump's showmanship, others were just completely made up. Let's break it down section by section, and I'll fact-check what's nonsense as we go. He claimed he won Michigan 3 times. That's false. He won it in 2016 and 2024. He lost it in 2020 by over 150,000 votes. Saying he won it 3 times is just not true. He said, "We have the most successful first 100 days in history." That's subjective, but it's a huge stretch. He signed a lot of executive orders, yes, but many are being challenged in court and others were symbolic or rehashed. Congress passed very few laws. That's not historically productive, especially compared to FDR or even Obama. He repeated that he's ending illegal immigration and claimed 99.999% fewer people are crossing the border. Only 3 people got in. That's absurd. There's zero evidence that illegal crossings are anywhere near that low. Even under the toughest crackdowns, people still cross. Even though it's true the number of illegal crossings has dropped significantly compared to the previous administration, that number is fantasy. He said inflation is over and prices are down on everything. That's misleading. Some prices have cooled, gas is down in parts of the country, though not to $1.98 in most places. Eggs did get cheaper, but only after spiking to record highs shortly after Trump took office, and the drop wasn't anywhere near 87%. On top of that, he took credit for price declines that actually began before his term, and inflation overall hasn't ended, core prices are still rising. He bragged about tariffs bringing auto jobs back and signed a 25% tariff on foreign cars. That will likely raise prices for consumers. It's true that some companies like Hyundai have started shifting production to the US to avoid the tariffs, but overall, the economic impact is still uncertain. It's not a clear win yet, it's a gamble. He said Democrats want to give amnesty to 30 or 40 million illegals. That number is made up. Most credible estimates put the number of undocumented immigrants in the US between 11 and 14 million. Even the highest estimates don't go beyond 18 million. Saying 40 million is a wild exaggeration and pure fear-mongering. He claimed violent crime exploded under Biden and is now dropping fast. In reality, crime spiked in 2020 under Trump during COVID and has been trending down since 2022. Trump inflates Biden-era crime and takes credit for existing declines. He said Democrats want to ban gas stoves and force people to drive electric cars. There were proposals focused on energy efficiency, but no law ever banned gas stoves. That claim came mostly from right-wing media, not actual policy. As for EVs, there were phased-in targets and incentives, not mandates. Trump reversed those plans, but saying people were forced into electric cars is misleading. He reinstated military people discharged over vaccines. That part is likely true. That was expected. He claims to have the best recruiting numbers in 30 years. That's false. While military recruitment has improved recently, especially in the Army, no data shows record highs going back 3 decades. In fact, most branches are still struggling to meet long-term goals, and the overall recruitment environment remains tough. He claimed he pardoned hundreds of political prisoners from January 6. That's partly true. He issued pardons and commutations to over 1,500 individuals involved in the Capitol riot, but calling all of them political prisoners is dishonest. Many were violent rioters, convicted criminals, and leaders of extremist groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Some had prior convictions for serious crimes unrelated to January 6. Labeling them all as political prisoners is a false narrative. He claimed he ended all censorship and restored free speech. That's vague and not accurate. He signed an order discouraging government involvement in content moderation. However, this order doesn't affect private companies, which still control their platforms and content moderation policies. So while it limits government involvement, it doesn't eliminate censorship overall. He said the Paris Climate Accord would have cost trillions. That's misleading. The Paris Agreement is a voluntary framework where each country sets its own emission targets. There are no binding costs or penalties for non-compliance. Saying China paid nothing is also misleading. China committed to specific targets, such as peaking CO2 emissions before 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality before 2060. Labeling the accord as a financial burden and claiming unequal commitments misrepresents its structure and intent. He said he released all JFK, RFK, and MLK assassination files. That's not true. He signed an executive order to declassify the remaining records, and thousands of pages have been released. However, some files are still redacted or withheld for national security reasons. So while he initiated the process, not all documents have been made fully public. And he closed by saying America is now safe, strong, rich, and unified. After just 100 days, it's spin. Things are moving fast, but there's serious division, inflation concerns, legal battles over his policies, and international tensions. Final verdict: the speech was typical Trump, filled with hype, a mix of real actions, half-truths, and bold-faced lies. Some of it's happening, but a lot is wishful thinking, exaggeration, or total fiction. Well, yeah, same old story, don't you think? I mean, he just repeats the same claims over and over and over again. At this point, I think I could probably pass an exam on the topic of his lies. But alright, now that we've refreshed our memory with that 100-day speech, let's ask ChatGPT to predict what might happen over the next 100 days. But before we get into that, here's a quick reminder. If you're enjoying the channel, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't already. It really helps the video to reach more people and lets me keep posting new content each and every week. Thanks so much, and now let's find out the prediction. Alright, now I'm going to ask ChatGPT to predict what the next 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency might look like. So, let's see what it comes up with. Trump will double down, not slow down. After bragging about the greatest 100 days in history, he's boxed himself into delivering even more, even faster. That means more executive orders, more flashy announcements, and more chaos, not less. His administration will likely ramp up mass deportation attempts. He'll continue to lean on the Alien Enemies Act to justify removing undocumented immigrants, especially those labeled as criminals or gang-affiliated, because he sees it as something that actually delivers results. But here's the thing, the courts are going to step in. Expect lawsuits, injunctions, and maybe even some high-profile ICE raids gone wrong that dominate the headlines for days. That kind of overreach won't win him support beyond his base. It'll only sharpen the backlash. You'll also see the big, beautiful bill pushed in Congress, that massive tax cut package he keeps promising. No tax on tips, Social Security, overtime. Sounds great until people realize it's got a giant hole in it. Economists and even some Republicans will warn that it could blow up the deficit. Still, Trump will keep pressing for it, framing it as a test of loyalty. If you don't pass this, you're not with the American people. Expect even more fights with federal agencies. Trump has already started gutting DEI programs and replacing civil servants with loyalists, and that pace is likely to pick up. The Department of Education is still on the chopping block, and within the next 100 days, he'll likely push harder to dismantle or defund it entirely. But that kind of restructuring creates friction, not just with Democrats, but with long-serving career officials. That tension will likely lead to more resignations, whistleblowers, and internal leaks, all of which Trump will spin as proof of a deep state working against him. And he'll use that narrative to tighten control and energize his base. Foreign policy will follow the same pattern, loud, reactive, and built for headlines. Trump isn't thinking in terms of alliances or long-term strategy, it's all about leverage. Tariffs will stay at the center, with possible new penalties aimed at allies like Germany or Canada, if they're seen as unfair. Ukraine will remain stuck, maybe a shaky ceasefire, but no real peace. If Russia escalates, Trump's likely response will be secondary sanctions or at most military aid. With China, tensions will rise further, as Trump blames them for trade, tech theft, or backing Russia, and tariffs will spike again. That'll win applause from his base, but bring higher prices and market turbulence. Iran might provoke, but Trump will mostly stick to tough talk unless there's a crisis. NATO will feel more pressure too, with threats to pull back US support if allies don't pay up. Empty threats? Maybe, but enough to rattle Europe. On top of that, he'll continue to mock Biden, the courts, the media, sometimes even his own party, and always with bigger, wilder claims. He'll take credit for falling inflation, lower gas prices, and job creation, even though most of that started before his second term. The more outrageous the claim, the more it dominates coverage. Meanwhile, Trump's approval ratings will keep dropping. With more wild claims and unstable policymaking, some of his more moderate supporters are going to start tuning him out. They're not necessarily flipping, just getting tired. And when you combine that fatigue with policy backlash and economic jitters, you start to see real erosion. Not a free fall, but a slow, steady decline. From the high 40s, maybe into the low 40s, possibly even the high 30s if things go sideways economically. In short, the next 100 days will be a mix of real action and performative noise. More executive power grabs, more agency purges, more extreme rhetoric, but also more resistance from the courts, from Congress, from the public. The MAGA base will love every second of it, but the rest of the country more and more will be asking, what exactly did we sign up for? That's where Trump will start to feel pressure, not from outside enemies, but from within his own system. Because if the next 100 days look just like the first 100, only louder and riskier, he might realize that winning an election is easier than holding on to momentum. And that's pretty much it. ChatGPT definitely had a lot to say, but now we'll just have to wait and see how much of it actually comes true. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you think about all of this and what you expect from Trump's next 100 days in office. Also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description if you want to support the channel directly. With all of that out of the way, go on and click on the video where I asked AI to rank the 10 worst things that Trump did in his first 100 days. Thanks for watching, click on the pop-up, and I'll see you over there in just a moment.